write down everything I say.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And then talk for 3 hours.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll get going because somebody might leave before. So, welcome to number 2 of systemic functional grammar session on appraisal. Who was here before? First, number 1. No. Right, I think that's the
that doesn't bode
old mob who are going to be a bit late. Right. Okay, so I was going to recap anyway because I thought we'd have a mix of people who've done the first one and some who hadn't. So, what I'll do is I'll go through this first. And thanks, Sally. Cool, thank you. And then we'll get into the second piece. So once we get the framework, then we'll start analysing what students actually write. What we did last time is we went through this and then we got through number 1, number 2 and I think number 3. I think we got up to 1 minus, and so we'll push on from the 1 to 1 plus to 2 stage and see what we get. So I'm running these, one reason I'm running them is I went to Sydney earlier this year and went to this 2-day session on this, and so it's part of my time is exactly, giving back and passing on the details. Yeah. So let's start with this. What is appraisal, first of all? Appraisal is how you show attitude. And so that's position, likes, dislikes, how you show your relationship of your attitude to other people's attitude, to the reader, a community of readers that you imagine, and you construct an in-group and an out-group, just kind of inferentially in the text, various things like this. So it's probably best to look at the detail by working our way through it. Basically, let's start with attitude. So with attitude. So what we're looking at and going to try to develop in students through analysis of this, we can figure out what language resources are there that they've already got, what resources they're kind of missing. It might be a category that they use a lot, like for example, first one, emotion. So, I love, I hate, I like, I don't like, the simplest one of all. So early on we found students, as predictably, would use quite a lot of that. Okay, but the next ones we've got here are, I'll put the next one actually, the order's a little bit different from this, just because I'm used to working with this order. So, appreciation. So, appreciation is like aesthetics. So, let's have a look over the page here. I'm skimming through this because I want it to just be a recap. Actually, they've got the order around the other way, haven't they? Different from what I'm doing. But, okay, one thing that will show you, see the very back page? There's a more detailed list. I'll be jumping around through the categories quite a lot, okay? So if you look at that last page, 3, appreciation. Well, look, actually, I'm jumping around too much, sorry. Emotion, have a look at affect. Sometimes called that. Affect. And the example is, many students are outraged. I'm discomforted. So those I like, I dislike, you might get lower levels, but at the higher levels, you might get something like that. But it's still a direct expression of emotion. Okay, so if we jump to appreciation. So as it says, assessments of, this is assessments, apologise for jumping around, I'm going to actually start here. There's a reason, and that is, we'll understand that better if we look at this. Alright, sorry about this. Judgment. If we look at judgment, it's judgment of behaviour. That's the key. Human. And they break it down into a number of categories. You can see the categories there. What they call social sanction and social esteem. So social sanction is legality or illegality, morality or immorality. Let's look at some of the words as examples. It's often through the example that you get the best idea. Immoral, just jumping around. Sinful, innocent, law-abiding, murderous, cruel, caring, deceptive, fraudulent, honest. You know, they're obviously normative judgments of behaviour. So you can see how it's different from emotion, isn't it? Clearly we have an emotional reaction to those things, but the way it's expressed is in that form. So that's social sanction. As one presenter said, social sanction is different from social esteem. Let's have a look at social esteem. Still evaluating people, but not morality or legality. And it breaks down into normality. So somebody's eccentric or conventional or traditional. Competence or capacity. Skilled, knowledgeable, stupid, dunce, feeble. And psychological disposition. So emotions here, but not direct emotional expression like the first category, affect. Brave, determined, zealous, lazy. So you can see there's judgments implicit in those terms, but they fall into those categories. So social esteem, social sanction. Now, you know, it took me a while, just those 2 days, you know, it takes a while to get just used to working in these categories, sorting them out and deciding. And then, you know, there are grey areas and there are contestable words like, is that word more social sanction or is it more social esteem? One thing that helps, as one person said, if you get in trouble and need a lawyer or a priest, then that's social sanction, because it's about legality or morality. Yeah. Other things are probably going to fall into social esteem. Okay, so we can show judgment by using these sorts of terms. Appreciation, the reason I jumped here is because appreciation is about the non-human behaviour. Okay, so if we now go to number 3, assessments of objects, artefacts, processes, circumstances and states of affair rather than of human behaviour or character. Okay. However, human participants may be appreciated, but like aesthetically, like he's a really handsome young man. That's an aesthetic judgment. It's a person, it's a human, but it's an aesthetic judgment, isn't it? It's not a moral judgment or legal judgment or judgment of social capability. So, as I said, it's traditionally known as aesthetics, positive and negative assessments of the form, appearance, construction, presentation or impact of objects and entities. There's a review of the E-Type Jag, masterpiece, dramatic, gorgeous, glamour. Notice it can be adjectives, dramatic, but it can also be nouns, glamour, romance. So we're not looking so much at this is a form of grammar, but it's obviously a different universe of grammar, and the two are useful to combine and say, okay, look, here's appreciation, and it's being expressed through the adjectival form, but we can do it by nominalising it and packaging it as a noun and say glamour. And that's a pretty important technique, the whole nominalisation thing, that people who are into this, you know, stress quite a lot. The nominalisation of these, most of those adjectives. You can package it as a noun that has certain effects. Okay, so you've got those methods of showing attitude. Now then, if we go back to the beginning, we've got attitude, and then our next category, the next broad category, we're going to put it up here, graduation. Once you express an emotion, or you appreciate, sorry, I better write there non-human participants. So once you've made an emotional statement or appreciation or judgment, then you can modify it, intensify it, or lower it with graduation. So you have two forms of graduation. You have force and focus. So if you look at force, this is the intensity of something. So you can do it various ways. That angel, that rascal, right, implicit in the word is a certain level of intensity. Heavenly, rotten, shot or plunged. Just by choosing words that are more intense than, say, dropped or rose, you're adding a force to the expression. You can do it through repetition. You tried and tried, or they were terrible, just awful. Two different words, but still a repetition. Jumping a little bit further down, the really simple one to understand is a little, very, very intensifying. Always, sometimes. So there, you're intensifying. That's what they call usuality. Sometimes, always, never. That's a form of force as well. He probably clearly went home. Yeah, so motor adjuncts. I'd put that under entertainment, but anyway, they're putting it there. We'll get to entertainment in a minute. So that's force. So raising and lowering of force, is about intensity. Now, if we flip over, you get focus. So let's think of that as intensity of something. Focus is does it belong to a particular category? And if it really, really belongs, that's strong focus. For example, James is a true friend. Out of the category of friend, he's right in the centre. So very, very focused. If he's kind of a friend, it's out on the edge, isn't it? But can you see how it's different? It's not a quantitative thing. It's more like, has he got this quality? How far towards the centre of that scale of set, if you like, that set is he? All right, I'm going to go quickly because these are recap. We have covered this before. Okay, so that's graduation. So maybe I'll underline it with a different colour because there are categories and they're sort of broader categories. So we've covered attitude, and under attitude we've got those three ways of expressing attitude. Then we've got graduation. How much of something? So, category there. Next one, engagement. An engagement is just kind of what it says. It's like how involved is the writer, how much do they identify with a position, and how much they distance themselves from something. So we have three categories, and again I'm going to change the order a bit because I think it's more logical to think of proclaim, then disclaim. So positive, isn't it? Proclaiming, disclaiming, and then we've got entertain, and attribution. So proclaim is where, let's have a look, last page there. Second. Sorry, page 1, 2, 3, 4. Proclamation. I'm compelled to conclude. So if you have a look at the top, it says where the speaker writer subscribes to a particular position and in some cases rules out competing alternative ones. So it's a way of kind of blocking out other positions and aligning yourself closely. So that's why it's called engagement. It's about how distant you are from that statement. Are you aligning yourself with it or are you distancing yourself? So all these expressions are kind of about close suggesting close alignment with what's being said. I'm compelled to conclude that, clearly, that structure aligns the writer with that idea. I argue, I believe, X has shown, X has demonstrated. Okay. No one, of course, so that phrase, of course, aligns the writer more strongly with the position. Personally, to my mind, etc., etc. Okay, so that's proclamation. Jumping to disclaim. It's about distancing. It is alleged. It is alleged suggests, well, somebody's claiming it, but you don't necessarily identify with it, right? There's a distancing there. So I'm going backwards here to the earlier page. I deny, I concede, in other words, it was something that was distant. I'm now accepting some of it. Can't be true. What is a free gift? Aren't all gift free? Rhetorical question. Distancing yourself from the idea. So that's disclaiming. You can see this is about proximity, isn't it? To an idea, either distant or close. Okay, entertain is when you're allowing a number of possibilities. It's like, you know, the collocation in English, oh, I entertain, why don't you entertain that possibility? So that's kind of entertain. Not Bugs Bunny or Disneyland, right? It's entertaining the possibilities. So if we have a look at examples, clearest one would be things like may, probably, likely. So all the hedging that we do in a lot of academic discourse would fit in here. Use of these use of modals. And certain reporting verbs. The report suggests that. Rebecca had that nice thing I saw today that you gave Alison, reporting verbs from the Uni of Adelaide. And I was looking at that and thinking, yeah, you could actually go through that list and think of some terms do, some of those phrases do that. You know, something proves, the research proves. Claims is an interesting one because claims sits there. Somebody claims, but it's more distanced. Suggests would fit in here. So that list, they didn't categorise that list using this framework, but it would be an interesting exercise for us. We could sit down and go through that and try to sort out which one's distance, say, reporting research, and which one's suggest agreement and so on. And, you know, getting students sensitive to that. That's obviously, you know, something you do at diploma level. Certainly, probably EAP could explore that kind of stuff. But yeah, often when you get that stuff, it's not looked at in this framework. So that's where this framework can give us new insights and suggest things that perhaps we should be teaching that we're currently not. Which I want to move to once we get through this stuff. Okay, it seems that, it's possible that, you can see, I think, entertainment there. Attribution's fairly simple. It's when you're reporting what other people say or write or claim. She alleged that. It's also disclaimed as well, isn't it? There's a distancing in the term alleged. So in a case like that, you can have two things operating at once. There's disclaim and attribution. There's no reason, lots of these things can overlap. They're not mutually exclusive. They convincingly showed, yeah, so if you show something, that suggests you, as it says, endorse it as well. Yeah, because you believe it to be true if it's shown. So that's having the effect of attribution, but also proclamation. You're kind of underlining that you agree with that. According to Rowan, comedians should have moles. According to, so any according to is attribution. Okay, so we went through that last time. Yep.
Just a question there. Attribution, like according to Rowan, comedians should have moles, and yet if we were to say Rowan claims, that the meeting should have mould, you would suggest that the claiming, that word claim, is under, is where? Is under,
Disclaim,
is under disclaim, and yet,
but also attribution. It would be doing two jobs at once, I'd say.
okay, yeah, because I was thinking it's very close.
Yeah, I'd say that's doing two things. It's saying
right.
that person
Yeah.
said this, but also the word claim is also doing that disclaiming work as well.
Right.
Because if you say somebody claims, there's a but hanging in there somewhere, isn't there? Usually, you're going to. If you say claims, it's not necessarily true.
No.
But if you say shows,
Right.
there is. Yeah.
Yeah, I see.
So that one's more distant than the other. So there's a disclaim element in the
I see. Okay.
in the word claim.
That's quite subtle.
A
isn't
disclaim
it?
in the word claim. That's scary. Right. All right. So I've raced through that. If you want to work your way through in more detail, we'll probably end up referring back to that as we work through the examples. As I said, with these things, what I wanted to do was to work our way up through actual text. So these came from, as you can see at the top, ISLPR writing examples. I don't know when and how, who gave these to us. They were circulating. And it's kind of handy because we have worked our way through just looking at the first one, the second, the third. I've got a notated copy of that if you would like to look at those later, but I'm going to keep on rolling because for the third to a half we've sort of covered those already. We did number one, so 0 plus to 1 minus. We did the 1 minus, I think. I like country Australia. And I'm going to jump now to 1. Guys who were here last time, I don't think we covered number 1. Did we? My town is radio? No. Okay, so with that extremely quick introduction, we're now going to use these tools to analyse this. Now, the point of analysing it is to see, ultimately, out of all of those are all resources that writers use, and obviously some at lower levels, like some of these, well, you might report, my mother said, sure, those simple forms. You may not get into too much of some of those. I think you'd be surprised at lower levels what can emerge here, depending on the context and the situation. Even ordinary things that you report, it doesn't have to be research. But yeah, what we're trying to find is, by looking at students' work, what they're strong at, but there might be a gap. They might use heaps of this and heaps of this, but they're just not using this very much. Now, it might be the nature of the task that they're writing about. They just don't need to talk about this. But and this is obviously what you're going to reflect on, like, what's the purpose of what they're writing, and what would we expect, out of a more developed writer, and then where are the gaps? Are they using a lot of this but not so much of this? Are they really good at this? But they probably should in this task be doing some of this, but there's just nothing there. So the point of this different kind of grammar framework is that your classical grammar obviously isn't going to tell you any of this kind of thing, is it? It's just there aren't the mechanisms. So let's see what we get. We look at 1 plus.
Oh, 1 or 1?
Oh, sorry, 1. 1. Let's just look at. I'll just work through the first, say, 3 or 4 lines, and then I'll hand it over to you to see what you get, and have 5-10 minutes on it. My town is Radio. It is a very beautiful town in Italy. The town is on Radio Lake. Radio Lake has a very clean water and a fish. We are going to the beach and swimming in this. Radio has a very shops and restaurants and hotels. In the summer comes a very much visitors who have a very good holiday. Yeah. Okay, now we'll forget the classical grammar. Well, we might need it. We'll just keep it in the background and work with this new framework. Anything in the first sentence? Is there?
Very beautiful.
Yeah, okay, so let's work with very. There's a lot of very, as you said, Alison. Where's very fit into this?
False.
Yeah. So let's, you could get a person's work, you could write up those categories, almost boxes, and then you could just kind of transfer it and see, you know, where the resources are falling. Yep, so we've got very. How many times have we got very? 1, 2,
Very,
3,
we've got very
4.
much, very much, very.
I think there's 5, isn't it?
5, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Force one day, no.
That's right. So there's this limitation on their force resources, isn't it? So that would straight away tell you there is actually, yeah, there are hints at a couple of other areas of force. We'll get to that later, where they kind of need it but they haven't got it. And we'll see what they are. So we've identified this overuse or over-reliance on this one element in force. What else in that first sentence?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Appreciation.
Yeah. Put it in there. You can either mark it in the text or put it under these sort of categories or what? There's some appreciation. Yep. And, all right, let's move on to second sentence. Second is, I think it's the town is on, isn't it? Okay, so there's a classical grammar error there, but in terms of what we're doing, nothing. It's just what we call assert. It's an assertion. It's not I believe or I feel, or there's no proclamation in there. It's just bold, blank assertion. This town is there. Okay, so that doesn't give us anything. Radio Lake has a very clean water and a fish.
So we see the same.
Yeah, clean. People are zeroing in on clean.
Properly?
Not so much proclaim. It's not like I believe or I think. It's
It
a
seems
kind
to be
of
a
judgment,
social
isn't it?
sanction, perhaps. So the fact that it's
Uh-huh.
clean.
Right.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
What are we judging? Are we judging? That's an interesting one, actually. Are we judging a thing or are we judging behaviour?
I think
And what's the thing?
the water.
Yeah.
Yes. So hang on.
It's not behaviour, it's appreciation.
So I see.
Yeah.
So yes.
Appreciation. Would you agree? Yeah.
Right.
However, that isn't a very interesting point, Elsa. There's this sort of implication, sort of
Yeah.
indirect, isn't it? That, you know, the authorities are doing a good job, not polluting it.
Yes.
You could, yeah, let's put it here as well, because as I say, things can do a number of jobs. And one term that's used in this framework is a thing called invoked. Invoked means kind of indirect and not obvious. It's like anything that's like a subtext or implied, but it's not explicitly stated. If it's explicit, the opposite, I'll just put the opposite there, is inscribed. So it's like it's actually written and it's there under our nose for us all to see. So this notion of invoked and inscribed is quite important. Because in a text there are often, you know, they're kind of obvious, but there's all these other layers that are working and quite subtly there, and like that one is kind of arguably in there. Arguably in there. Arguably.
Entertain her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You don't want to do too much of this, you go mad. Okay, do you want to go through this like this, or do you happy to have a go in your group? Yep. All right. So you getting the idea? All right. Get into it. We are going to be swimming in this. Work your way through the rest of the text. See what you discover. We'll come back in about 10 minutes. See what you found. Now we're gonna put the all-seeing eye on you guys.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So behave yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel as though does he make it? Is there any sort of evaluation or appraisal going on here? It's just a simple statement of fact, isn't it? He's just going to be.
No worries.
Oh, okay. Is he proclaiming?
Which one?
He's going to the beach.
Oh yeah.
He's not subscribing to a particular position. He's not acknowledging a possibility
to go to the beach.
But he is proclaiming it
He
somehow.
actually, he's
Sort
very
of a,
close to what he
"We are
says. He's
going
not
to,"
distancing
yeah.
himself. So
That is just really an assertion.
it's an assertion.
Yeah, it's just a
isn't it?
straight
Yeah,
comment.
yeah, straight
No,
assertion.
there's not I believe or I
Yeah.
concur or yeah.
Okay.
So then radio has
Radio
a very shop
and restaurants and
Hotels. So it's obviously got many, and so that's
that's the fourth. We've already identified that as a fourth.
yeah. I would suggest that it's got positive meanings here. I mean, in my case, I wouldn't want it to, but he probably thinks it's good to have lots of shops.
So you mean it's a positive?
yeah.
He hasn't put it in the negative, he's definitely put it in the positive.
Well, that's right. So, and yet he hasn't included the word many.
No.
So a list of nouns grouped like that.
That shows
Suggests
you,
kind
yeah.
of abundance somehow.
Yeah. So, what would we call that? A force with graduated positive force.
Oh, have you?
Okay,
In the summer.
Aren't you going to do this one?
which one? No, we finished it.
Did you?
So here he's talking again about, I would suggest the same. Positive
Yes.
force.
Popular, yeah. Very
Yes.
So what would that be? Positive force of graduation.
No.
And
Yeah.
they have a very,
Well, I tell you what.
very many
Rather than
visitors,
jump
very
ahead, if you
good.
want to attack something, have a look there.
Um,
However, what
Yeah,
about
it seems to be
still on this one?
positive,
What would you say the person,
positive words of force under
Needs.
the,
especially in
graduation.
the area of force?
he seems to be stuck on that sort of
Yeah.
area. So I guess if you
Okay,
were
we
to
are
say
going
what
to the
does this
beach.
person need, it would be probably to expand
the vocabulary to
into,
describe,
which,
to describe positive things or
or
So
to
where
get
would you
some
qualify?
evaluation coming through with
Yes,
engagement.
that's right.
Um,
So they need more force
I mean,
resources.
but then again, it's just about a place,
And it's a one.
and it's
Can you
only
see
100.
where would you say they need?
Well, the good is the appreciation, and the very is the intensity thing.
Are very
Yes.
much visitors, so
Yes.
especially the four nouns, they need
Yes, that would be appreciation
more resources to
like
back
under,
Yep. That's right. Also,
yeah,
back on, we are
appreciation
going
under
to the beach.
attitude,
That's
yeah.
swimming.
This is the good
We
holiday,
are going to the beach.
appreciation
What
under
does the
attitude.
phrase say? I've
Um,
just said, and asked the ladies.
and beautiful is appreciation,
But he's
and
identified
very
himself
seems to be coming up all the time.
other
And I mean, you only have to look at that for 1 second and you can see that
see what
they're
we
modifying.
the shore of the lake.
Yeah.
But we need to look at the level as well.
Oh, that's right, yeah. Say
Yeah, I was
why you
thinking of
like this
like-
face.
We often go to
Yeah.
the beach, you know, this is
Well,
not so
so-
we often or we usually or we always go, something like
yeah,
that.
it's
So
the sort of
again,
basic
that's a force.
vocabulary
He
that you
needs
build
something
on
about
from
one,
one,
what
so you
we
can build on all of
usuality.
those
Yeah,
We often
words
go,
and
we always
expressions.
go,
Yeah.
we frequently
Yeah.
apply to this level,
And
not
that's
just deal with
also,
problem.
and that's still valid if you're going to move them on to the next level, you would want them to give it, putting a little bit of focus into it. So,
Yes.
you know, about what it is about radio that's quieter and okay, why is it a good holiday?
And even
Yeah.
even in the summer,
So you could introduce some clauses, more
you could even put it usually. A lot of visitors, you know,
And you'd also want to
usually
get
come a lot of
into
visitors.
engagement
Again,
in
using
terms of
usuality there.
the author's
Phil.
identification with the town
Mm.
and saying,
But he's engaged from the first lines that my town is.
yeah, yeah.
But if you look at the high, then that's our ways of expanding. Like, I know that some people feel that the radio is too crowded. But the sea with its one.
Okay, so for time purposes, speed things up, I'll suggest what. When I went to Sydney, some of you know Helen Fraser, so we went together. She's really into this, she's doing a PhD in using this stuff, so we get together every so often and sharpen our axes together. So we worked on this together, and I got some good ideas from her, that was helpful. But, so this is kind of what we thought of the piece, so what you think. Just one thing earlier on, he says, or she, Radio Lake has very clean water and a fish. What does he mean to say? She mean to say?
Clean fish.
And
Well, there are lots of
some-
fish.
some.
Some fish, probably even many fish. Like it's
Yeah.
clean and it's it's healthy, isn't it? It's
That's
probably,
right,
yeah.
that's
So
right.
many. If we wanted, so in other words, what's missing? We're not only seeing what resources the person has, but what they need. So where would you say many fish?
Under graduation.
It is.
Of course.
Yeah. So it seems like they need this resource.
Yeah.
There's another spot they need it, isn't it? Later down in the summer comes a very much visitors. I mean, much is getting close. It's just an accountability question. But many would help there. Also, radio has a very shops. That's a more problematic spot. Many shops or very many shops. So again, there's this problem with force and not controlling that adequately, or not having that resource. It doesn't appear, and it seems this person's almost struggling around getting this word.
Well, they need alternatives, don't they?
Yeah.
They need a greater vocabulary.
Exactly.
Of those.
And it's building alternatives across, trying to get a reasonable spread across these functions. And many fish. Now, we are going to the beach and swimming in this. That sounds like, okay guys, we're going to the beach.
In the future.
They want to make a general statement here, don't they? We thought we are often going to the beach.
Yeah.
Well, we always go, basically it's following on in terms of intention from the last statement. This is such a nice lake
Yes.
that we often go. That's the kind of emotional logic.
Yeah.
So this person needs this often. Again, it's force. But it's not this sort of numerical quantity, it's usuality.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So they would probably need it there. And then we've got those quantity ones, very many shops. In the summer, again, possibly often come, many visitors, or usually, or something like this. So possibly usually, or always. So it's just this little category here that would be of assistance. So if you've got this person's writing, or several people's writing, they're demonstrating this sort of thing, it's kind of like the point is it's a diagnostic tool. You can see what they're good at, what where their learning edge is, what they need next. You know?
Just to be pedantic.
Yeah.
You,
Go for it, Pat.
if you can't be pedantic here,
Where can you?
You know, in fact, that's a pretty good sentence, isn't it? In the summer comes a very many visitors. I mean, they've chosen a sort of a simple form rather than a continuous form.
And that's a
Uh-huh.
replication of
Yeah.
Italian
So in fact,
grammar.
you don't really
You
need
Is
use
it?
it first,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
you don't really need a adverb. Really, you can say
Yes.
many visitors come in the summer. It's perfect, really,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yes, yes.
Because simple present
Because of the simple
Yeah.
form. True.
you know, more than once.
Yep. Yeah. And the fact that this person, I mean, if we go classic for a minute, who have a very good holiday, there's a little relative clause there, pretty strong.
They're highly advanced.
Yep. So that's something strong, but again, you know, that's outside this framework. This framework isn't going to tell us this, so we've got to be switching hats all the time, and you know, and pick some things up with the classical method and others with this method. But I think we all agree we've been trained more the other, and that this framework and this hat we probably need to develop the vocabulary of a bit more. Yeah. Yeah.
They've got some ability with their spelling, because the very has, actually,
The Vesi.
no, it's an R, I've just realised.
It is an R, but then
No,
it's
it's-
also used as an S
No,
somewhere, isn't it?
No, it's the way they write their R.
It is, but there was somewhere where
Like visitors
Visitors.
is the,
Is it
yeah,
visitors?
that's true, the S in visitors
Yeah.
is
It's a
there.
lot like the other.
yeah,
But they're experimenting with
Zesteros.
spelling, because they've obviously a double R for the last very
yeah.
is what makes sense to them if they're thinking of cherry and berry.
Mm. No worries. Okay, catch ya. All right, we'll push on. 1+. Getting a bit hard for these guys. We're up to 1+, so they've gone. So, what if we? I think that's probably all from that. But can you see the point of the exercise that we're getting? We kind of see where they're strong, but like. If we had to, you know, sum up, really, it's this force area, isn't it, where we need to develop more resources. If we didn't have this method, we'd be going through and correcting. I don't know if we'd quite arrive at. We'd probably think, oh yeah, they need to do this and they need to do that. But as a teacher, we wouldn't understand at that mental level, oh, it's actually about controlling force. So, and I think that's a useful and helpful thing.
Instead, we'd be saying, oh, there's too many berries there. Let's think of
Yeah,
alternative
yeah,
words you
exactly.
could be using.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Mm.
And we wouldn't necessarily be linking it with this pattern here, because so good. Yeah, but actually it is kind of one and the same broad problem.
You'd be really thinking about countables and uncountables, wouldn't you? You'd be thinking, well, how can I
Yeah.
get this across a bit better?
And so not at all comfortable with articles, you know.
Yeah.
Put them in everywhere because they know that there are more in English than there are in Italian.
And the shotgun effect, just shoot and you some will miss. Yeah, no worries.
It's like shooting a fish in a well.
Yes. Yeah, and both those perspectives will tell us important things. So it's not a matter of rejecting one, but working with both. All right, let's have a look at the 1+. Write a letter to a friend. So I think the purpose, we've always got to be looking at the purpose. The last one was a descriptive thing. And this one is a recount because it's telling your friend what you've been doing lately. So we might expect different pattern. So it's about expressing yourself and probably not, hopefully not just saying what you've been doing, but passing some sort of reflection or judgment on that. How have you been doing since I left Sydney? I've been doing very well. I got a job a month after I arrived in Tokyo. I worked for a credit company as a receptionist. I liked working there at first, 2 months. It was very busy, then getting quieter and quieter. I was getting bored, Then I quitted that company. Next job was an office work for a metal trading company. I assisted a sales representative making invoice, receiving orders. Yeah,
It's a pretty strong one, plus.
it is, isn't it? Yeah, I reckon it is. All right, well, what if I won't say any more, just hand over to you, see what you think of what's going on, and in 10 minutes we'll pull it together.
Well, I guess he's very engaged. Yeah, the person is writing to, or she. I mean, engagement is dialogic in essence. So, proclamation, entertainment, would it be proclamation because the writer is basically, well, it's a funny thing that subscribing to a particular position, it includes pronouncements of personal statements, so
Yeah, but it's...
like, how are you? Do we include questions?
The writer responds to something, affirms something, anticipates possible responses.
Oh, yeah, there you go, yeah. So which part of engagement do you think would be proclamation, that
Maybe
first question?
proclamation, yeah.
I think the
Or
first
entertainment.
sentence is just appraisal and that, I think.
But it is,
It's a what now?
I don't think there's any appraisal in that.
but there is
They're
a,
trying to do,
in terms of
not
distance,
doing it.
it's close to the receiver, isn't it?
It is close to the receiver.
If this is supposed to be appraisals,
Yeah.
then, you know, you've
No.
got very well, light,
Yeah.
quieter and quieter, pretty busy.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, even if a question about someone's personal health, how are you? Is that an indication of anything? It you know what I mean? Like, I mean, obviously we look at the words that are clearly evaluative, but also are we looking at other things that you are, that immediately give you a feeling for how close that writer is to you?
I don't know.
I don't think,
I thought it was
I just think it's just the opening, it's just a statement, and because they're not
Yeah.
distancing themselves or affirming themselves to
Quieter and quieter.
piece of
It's a
writing.
politeness formula,
Yeah.
really, I suppose, isn't it?
Well,
But it is genuine curiosity.
Here, look at this, anticipates possible responses
Yeah.
So
and seeks
waiting,
support. So
you're waiting to know if it's positive or
Yeah.
negative, asking if there's
Yeah.
a positive or negative.
Waiting
Yeah.
for the next letter.
Yeah.
to
So
come
what
back.
would it
So,
be
yeah,
then?
I think probably
Proclamation?
Yeah.
Well, if we were going to put something to it, that would be the only one.
That's the only one that would fit, isn't it?
about anticipates.
Well, it's just in the opening.
It's just in the opening, yeah. And
Speaker
seeking
writes,
support.
responds to something, affirms, anticipates
Oh, yeah.
possible responses.
The actual proclamation includes pronouncements of personal statements.
Statements.
Yeah.
It's not an endorsement of what
Just it's
someone
implying
said.
something,
No,
doesn't
no.
it?
Yeah,
Each way. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, to me, it
Yeah, I think the
Pronouncements of
examples are not very good.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, they're not
Yeah.
encompassing, all encompassing. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what John says, but
But the examples are things like, I deny that men are
Yeah,
apes.
yeah.
I know, they're not.
Yeah.
They don't include anywhere you've got the writer anticipating a possible response. I reckon it would be good to have an example of that.
Anyway, I'll shut up, but I don't think that's got anything.
What I've been doing very well is a pronouncement of a
Yes.
personal statement, isn't
Yeah.
it? The second sentence.
Yeah,
Very well.
so that's very personal, so that's a proclamation?
Yeah.
Okay, under engagement.
It's the
Okay.
very well part.
Oh, and the
And
very,
the force as
Yeah,
well.
so that's intensity.
intensity is the very, yeah. And then the well is
there's a fair bit of
positive. What was that one?
That's positive force.
When you're talking about how you are doing, it's a positive attribute
Yeah.
with a person,
Yeah, positive force.
which would be
No,
under
it's
judgment.
really, I had no,
Where is that one?
it is,
No,
that's
it's
right,
here,
it's
and
all
it-
fact.
not this
There's
page,
no
but
appraisal
the
going on
next
there.
page here,
Yeah.
positive force.
And yes, I wonder
Like,
if we
you know,
think
he's a highly active
structure
child,
thing,
All
doing
right.
very well.
she's got a list of
Instead,
several
yeah,
things
you know,
there.
Negative
Then
alternative.
then you've got the
Oh, okay, so,
repetition and
So,
singing
this might be invoked,
farther down. It's getting quieter
like
and quieter.
indirectly. He or
That's
she
Okay,
is saying,
I need some more
Yeah,
examples
yeah.
of
But
the,
There we
again,
are.
it's a bit like
It's
your
an
point,
intensifier.
like,
Intensities are the
you
scale
know,
up
you don't
and
know
down.
whether
Alvin was
she
a
is
little
implying this
very
or not.
disorientated. There are
And
sometimes always
could
late.
we-
For this one, I'm feeling very well.
this person
But
might
that-
be a bit more,
It's
I know I'm having
yeah.
a wow of a time because, you know, I'm doing so many
Positive
different
force,
things.
yeah.
All
What
right.
about the next two sentences? They're just statements of fact.
I got a job. Yeah, fact. I work for credit
It
company.
does seem in
Fact.
the logic of the
Okay, I
narrative.
That
like
just,
working there.
I like working
Yeah,
so
trying to
then,
do.
and then
That's
we've
a-
got what?
That's an engagement.
I liked,
yeah,
yes.
good at first, then quieter, quieter, boring,
That would be
then neutral.
proclamation.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
announcements of personal statements.
Right.
Uh,
So engagement proclamation.
Even something like much more interesting,
Yeah.
some phrase like that.
I liked working there
More variety.
in the
Yeah.
first
Something
2 months.
more exciting.
It was pretty busy.
Pretty.
That's
So
That's
that's
intensity.
force.
Intensity, the force
The G force.
again.
Then getting quieter.
Now hang on
No,
a
is that a
tick. What
statement?
about busy?
Busy.
Isn't that a statement?
Is that's a bit of a negative, isn't it?
Or is it just a fact?
It's a word of judgment, attitude,
Which comes under.
under attitude.
Yeah,
How you
that's
doing?
true
Hello.
about a.
Sean Marina was
Oh, yeah.
asking for me to look at something, but
Oh,
obviously not. It's fine.
Marina.
Yes, yes.
Okay, it's none of us.
No.
it isn't,
Sorry.
Because I recognise Marina very well, so
Yeah.
just as if I went here.
Okay.
So this business of being
Force
busy
and attitude
is
the positive force. Pretty,
Pretty,
that's
yeah.
force.
Pretty.
Married
Yes.
with attitude.
with attitude, which would be. Is attitude to
Yeah,
do
right.
with, but which part of attitude?
It's the judgment.
probably.
Non-human,
Yeah.
though? Yeah, human behaviour, judgment in attitude.
That's right, like
yeah.
engagement and some of those things.
So that's attitude and judgment.
Yeah, you're arguing a position, that's right.
Then it was pretty busy. Then, obviously,
Then
got.
getting quieter and quieter. Now that
I guess it depends if you're kind of constantly on Mary's, at least, you know, I didn't really
Yes.
believe it.
under
You
repetition.
still get that
Still
sort
get
of,
that.
yeah,
Yes, synonym.
yeah.
Yeah, synonym. Yeah,
And she played, but, you know.
which is
Tried and tried.
G-force again.
So even on that personal level, you can still get it, but, yeah, it's often
Although
common.
also, would it be under attitude and judgment, the fact that it's quieter?
Where's
It's pretty
busy's
good on that
judgment,
classical
quieter
level.
has to be
That's
judgment too,
exactly
doesn't it?
right, yeah.
And judgment.
As well as
Yeah, it
All
sort of
right.
dies
a
away.
Like John
attitude.
was
Gets a
saying,
bit
it can be
flat, like
both.
so.
It can be both, yeah.
Okay.
Then I quitted that company.
Well,
Hang on, what about I was getting bored?
oh, bored.
I got bored.
Emotion?
So that's definitely a statement where they're engaging.
Attitude?
I got bored. Well, he certainly subscribes to a particular position.
Emotion.
would it be engagement proclamation?
That's what I thought. I'm just thinking about mine.
Looks like an emotion to me.
All right.
So that goes under
Attitude
judgment.
and judgment again, is that right?
Yeah, otherwise I just read. Yeah.
Is it under the human?
Yeah.
It says express through judgment, appreciation or emotion.
That's right.
So just we just put emotion.
Okay, so
Emotions on that next.
again, I'll whiz through this and mention how Helen and I looked at it, and then no doubt there will be other extras we can throw in. Okay, I've been doing very well. Yeah, so very force, isn't it? Well. Positive, is it, what do you think there? I've been doing very well.
We wondered if it was under proclamation engagement. Oh,
Well,
no, hang
it's
on.
a form of appreciation.
We actually went back to,
Yeah,
yeah,
What does it ask?
I think we did actually end up saying that it was under, is it under attitude and
yeah, isn't
under
it?
emotion, under effect?
You've been doing very well.
Hang on, wait. I find it hard to follow. It's attitude and then,
I would say it's not emotion, it's not an expression of emotion.
It's more like appreciation, isn't it? Like it's looking at my
Yeah,
life kind of from the outside, saying it's.
isn't that just
Isn't
an
it
object
judgment?
though? Appreciation?
you could say, oh, well, this is about behaviour, human behaviour, I've been doing, therefore it's judgment.
I was going to say, it
Yeah, but-
sounds more like judgment.
Yeah,
And it's not moral or legal, is it? It's just about,
well, yeah, if you look further down, I think it's under social
it's
esteem,
social esteem, yeah.
and it's
yeah.
something to do with like competence or capacity.
Yeah, that's right.
Judgment and social esteem.
Yeah.
Plus.
So obviously a positive there.
Yeah.
I got a job a month after I arrived in Tokyo. Ben, do you want to make that interesting point you made it here?
Oh, I was just thinking, again, looking at that area of force, like generally I think this person's got a lot more tools that she can use to talk about force, but this one sounds like it's crying out for an only a month or a whole month,
To
like,
show achievement
yeah,
somehow,
yeah,
Yeah.
to show that it's early, that it's or later than expected.
Or even if they had an adverb like amazingly.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting one.
Mm.
So what if I'll put up in green what they need? You know, it seems like there's only, or then you were saying a whole month, weren't you? Like
Yeah, so it could.
either depends what they want to mean.
Yeah, it could mean, wow, it only took me a month, or God, it took me a month. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Well, the fact that-
Amazingly is an interesting
And
one.
the fact that they said I've been doing very well
Yeah,
suggests
yeah,
that it was
suggests-
quick.
Yeah.
So I got a job only.
Yeah.
Only a month later.
Amazing.
We're not saying that they need to put the word only in
No,
there.
No.
Well,
But to
it
be
does
more
depend.
precise or
Yeah.
subtle in the meaning,
That's right.
they could add, fortunately or luckily or amazingly,
Yeah.
just.
It depends if that's what they were trying to mean, isn't it? So it's a question of
I
Does
can
it
see
relate
with
to
this,
purpose?
we'd always go over the word count with all, with using more of the, these
Yeah.
techniques.
yeah, true. I worked for a credit company as a receptionist. That's just a straight, bald fact. No appraisal there. I liked working there, so emotion pretty directly. At first 2 months. Now, for the first 2 months, that's in a way a bit of force about like. I liked it, but there was a limit on it. I only liked it for the first 2 months. So this is an expression of force. So for the first, was it 2 months?
Yeah.
Yeah. done pretty well. It's a quantity, a time, so time quantity. Showing the limits of how much they liked it. Actually had a limit on it.
That's also the idea of at first,
Yeah.
but after.
Exactly, yeah.
Or they could have even written, but only for,
Yeah,
but only for the first 2 months.
yeah, that contrastive element would be better if it were more explicit. It was pretty busy, then getting quieter and quieter, so just ignore the spelling, the then. Busy. We thought, interestingly, okay, it's an appreciation, and there's a bit of force there, pretty, which suits the genre because it's an informal letter to a friend, so appropriate force controller. But the busy is interesting because it only makes its full sense when you look at the rest. You know, it's getting quieter and quieter, and she's getting bored. So busy is we felt it was appreciation.
It's a bit of a positive.
And it's exactly, it's a positive, you know. Here was this variety, this level of stimulus, then things got worse.
Right.
So this is, it's not directly, you know, busy doesn't necessarily mean positive, but in this context, it's got this, there's this little subtext there, isn't
There's a
there?
cause effect implied.
Yeah,
isn't there?
and so,
So instead of being a judgment.
Yeah, we
it's
put
an
judgment,
appreciation.
didn't we?
So
Yeah.
instead of being a judgment, it's appreciation.
yeah, it's an appreciation of the workplace. And it's invoked, it's implicit in that. It's not like a word like, you know, very well or something, boldly, clearly states it. Then getting quieter and quieter. Well, that's a bit of force. There's a bit of repetition there, isn't there? So, quite good control of this repetition technique.
We also were wondering whether it was a bit of judgment together there.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
If it's got this, that's a good point. That's also operating there.
Oh, okay, under appreciation, not judgment, okay.
I think it, yeah, because if the first one of busy is appreciation, then
this one
that
has
one
to be,
follows,
yeah.
doesn't it? Yeah.
But it was still under attitude.
Yes. And it's a negative, isn't it? It's in contrast to the busyness of the first 2 months. Yeah, good point. I was getting bored, getting more explicit here. So bored, emotion, just a spelling change. But, and I was getting bored. Let's see it. And also, it was getting quieter and quieter.
Yeah.
So not I was bored, or it was quiet. I was getting. So
There's a graduation.
that's right, exactly. It's graduation and it's force, isn't it? So
This is at least a 2, this thing.
Oh, yes, yes,
yeah,
yes.
I reckon too. Yeah, I think it's a bit tough.
Yeah, my classes are really tough.
So getting something or other, getting in an adjectival structure there is a pretty good resource to have control of. In this literature they call it a downscaling of a verbal process, you know, getting quieter and quieter, getting bored. Well, that would be an upscaling, getting bored. Yeah, so downscaling and upscaling going on, which is an interesting use of the force resource. I quit that company. We were suggesting here, well, it's kind of a judgment. What's called, I don't know, it's in this list, but in other lists, tenacity. Can you hang on? Can you stay there?
Oh, yeah.
Or not? You know, that's, if you can, that's a positive. If you can't, it's a negative. So there's a bit of a negative.
You mean like the judgment is coming through?
the word itself, quit, you know, is a behavioural word, and a negative word like, you know, I couldn't hang on, I quit. So, and it's
judging the company rather than
Yeah,
themselves.
so negative force.
well, yeah,
Like quitting cigarettes. I mean, she didn't like the company.
yeah,
She quit it.
yeah. In a way, therefore, yeah, good point. So, is it then indirectly appreciation of the company?
As well.
Yeah, I agree. I think it belongs better there.
Mm.
It is a judgment ultimately of the company, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
If you said, oh, you know, he tried to give up cigarettes, then he quit. Quitting, that's a negative judgment about the person's tenacity. But in
It's
this
sort
case,
of-
it's more of
it's
a,
said
like
in
you
a
say,
rather
it's a judgment of the company. ultimately.
Negative way as well, like, you know,
Yeah.
if it were a bit more positive, I chose to resign.
Yes.
Or something,
So
whereas
then-
quit's kind of
Yeah.
True.
dismissive.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas they could, yeah, they could have actually
I decided to leave, or,
changed the focus a little bit,
Mm.
softened the focus.
Yeah, and look, the next statement is just a bald fact.
Yeah.
Next job is an office work. In fact, all of the rest is just bald, no appraisal going on. And Ben made the point,
Oh, sorry.
sorry, Ben's left, but he made the point that, yeah, it goes flat at the
Yeah,
end.
yeah.
He felt like, is she or he running out of time or
Yeah.
just out of energy, and
Yeah.
there's none of that appraisal
Yeah,
of
the
any kind
emotion.
going on there.
In
And
a way, it reflects the boringness of the job.
yeah. Sorry, Alison. you-
Oh, look, I just wondered about the first question. Does that show anything? Is it
How
like
have you been doing?
connecting,
Uh-huh.
is it giving us an immediate sense of the writer's engagement with the reader?
Uh-huh.
I mean,
Yeah.
is that something that it's positioning, I would have thought, of some sort? Engagement?
It's sort of constructing the reader in some way, isn't it? Addressing the reader.
Addressing the reader.
Is that anything
Yeah.
that you,
Not something I've come across, and I don't know if there's a lot of negativity or positivity in there. It's such a cliche. Kind of. It's almost
I
Isn't
see.
it empty?
Politeness
Hmm?
form of politeness.
yeah.
Learned.
Yeah. I'm not sure, you know, given this is appraisal, like about positives and negatives and feelings of things and distance, I don't know if it's doing anything.
Okay.
It certainly is a cultural
Yeah.
artefact, isn't it? Something that you do, but I don't know if it's got any of these elements in it. Ben made the interesting point at the end here that, you know, it goes flat in this way, but is he or she actually trying to say something through this? Maybe because, okay, if we look at the structure of the piece, had this good job for a little while, it got boring, then I changed, and
And it stayed boring.
well, I don't know. It could be that. It's kind of ambiguous, isn't it?
Assisted's quite positive, but then that's the sort of language they're encouraged to use
That's
anyway
right.
when they're writing about a job.
Isn't the person though saying, okay, I got bored and now I'm doing all these different things. I'm assisting a sales representative, making invoices, receiving orders, potential. I mean, it may. We don't know.
We can't really.
So it really needs a closing
Yeah.
statement. And we're showing a bit of an emotion. I enjoy this.
Yeah, that's right.
This works so
this-
much
I was
more.
busy.
Yeah.
Exactly. The appraisal is sort of missing here, and so there's none of that colour there. It sort of doesn't engage. It's an interesting thing that appraisal engages us, like emotionally, and when it's not there, it sort of loses its colour. But if the person were trying to say this, they might say, and this was much more interesting, or this was more varied, or
So that's the
at last I was busier,
To
or
give the student the tools to put
Yeah.
more emotional
yeah,
input into the text or to evaluate the facts for the reader.
exactly. And it's almost like, sure, you could list those things, but then you sort of, it's sort of like fact and opinion, fact, opinion, fact, opinion. You know, those little things, those little interpolations that liven it up with a bit of appraisal, yeah. And so it's a bit of like a review, an overview, kind of meta view. Okay, we're doing all these things, but so this was so much more satisfying or so much more interesting, or there needs to be this.
Yeah.
Whichever way, maybe it said, and I was still bored, like Mim's suggesting, or, you know, it was so much more fascinating, or...
I would think. Sorry, John.
Yeah.
I have to.
Yeah, all right.
Sorry.
No.
And Heather sends her apologies.
Just very quickly, 1 minute, I'll just wind up about some of the things we thought were showing here in this text. Pretty good force control.
Yeah.
Pretty strong.
Yeah.
All sorts of, not just, so varied, you know, a lot of variation in the techniques there. Not much appreciation resource. There's a well in there. But, yeah. Oh, well, there's that interesting one with the busy. In fact, that's pretty subtle, actually. But, you know, what does she want to say? Like, especially at the bottom there, that's where we thought more appreciation, like more exciting, more interesting, more varied, more different tasks, something like that, either invoked or inscribed. A bit of disclaiming, like, although, you know. Where do we think the although? Yeah. It was pretty good. I can't remember where we thought the although should go. But the main point was this appreciation. This writer seems to lack the ability to inject this side. It's there at times. But
although would go, although it was pretty busy, it started getting quite.
That's it. Thank you. Yeah, exactly.
Is it like
Yeah,
you're
so-
looking to expand the writer's repertoire in all of these
That's
genres?
right. Now we haven't got to here
Yeah.
because, as the point, you know, in recount you may not get here, but when we get to persuasive texts, obviously there's going to be a lot of this sort of thing. So as we move up and we look at the next levels, we'll probably see that more engaged. There's no reason why at low levels people can't and do use persuasive text. We just don't have examples here. But they also are more common at the higher level.
Thanks, John.
No worries. So we'll keep doing this. And in the next 3 weeks, I think week 6, we've got another session. I'm happy to just keep rolling,
Ramp it up.
see what we find. Yeah.
I find this to be a bit more practical this time. Last time I was sort of swimming, but this time
Right.
it's like you
Do
kind
you
of
think
see
that's
where
because you got more familiar
I
with
think
it?
probably it is. I'm
Yeah.
seeing, okay, there's a hole here, and this is what perhaps could happen. Is the
Yeah.
expansion of that. Yeah.
And probably as you're moving up into the level that you're more used to, perhaps, as well.
Yeah.
Or also, as you were moving up, most learners have more resources, so we're kind of broadening the whole umbrella.
I could
Yeah,
bring
all right,
I
thanks,
could bring an example of a native speaker letter and see how riddled it is.
Well,
with,
that would be
all
really
of these
interesting.
things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should do that.
That's
That's a good idea.
Are we signing our name
Yeah.
somewhere, or are you remembering?
No, I meant to bring that in, but I'll take a mental snapshot.
Alright, well, I'm in the video.
Right, that's right. We can prove it, can't we?
Thank you, John.
Thank you
No
very
worries.
much.
No worries.
Thank you.
Thank you.